My name is Chris Weimer, and I'm from Sanofi. And today's presentation is how we manage growth at Sanofi. And of course, leveraging true site capacity optimization to help us do that. As you can see on the slide, we have over 100 sites. Specifically in emerging markets, we have 37 of our manufacturing plants today in the emerging markets. And today, emerging markets make up 80% of the global population. And together, that represents the Sanofi tree. So as you can see from an evolution standpoint, Sanofi started growing back in 1718. Through different mergers and acquisitions, we've come up to the transformation stage that we're at today. So in about 2004, Sanofi merged with Aventis, and we became one company. It was shortly after rebranded to Sanofi, just because it was easier to say in most countries, and Aventis wasn't so easily understood in places like Asia-Pac. In 2011, we merged with Genzyme, which was a biotech company, and that actually allowed us to start what we consider our GIS transformation project and gave us the ability to focus in more of a biotechnical sort of area and not have to focus on things like the blockbuster drugs that had made us such a successful company in the past. So now we're going to talk a little about how the business relies on IT.
Yeah, so as Chris said, basically we're dealing with a transformation journey. Transformation journey was identified by some business strategies which were supported from corporate initiatives. Business strategies, first thing first, expansion to emerging markets, both in terms of sell products to a new customer base, but also enlarge the workers area. So as we said, presence in more than 100 countries. Consumer healthcare, so maintain Sanofi offering aligned to the fast-rolling market. So as Chris was saying, make Sanofi products available to a wider audience over time. And of course, have a focus on innovation. So be ahead of the curve and make sure that Sanofi products are the best one present in the market and put in place all the necessary tools to R&D in order to make it happen. These high-level business strategies are supported from corporate initiatives. So again, assess and make it happen external growth opportunities, both to enter a new market and also to have new workers in new areas. Increase innovation R&D, so make sure that R&D has the necessary tools, procedures, and capabilities in order to bring innovation in the market. And I mean, the last point I believe every one of you is pretty familiar with, keep on track a continuous improvement and alignment of the three major components to be successful: people, processes, and tools. Make them work together, ensure that together they are aligned to what business is expecting to IT, so that IT can be a valid partner to business during the transformation.
So constantly evolving environment. What does this mean to us? As you guys know, in the IT industry, things are never the same. Within the healthcare organization, we are always dealing with mergers, acquisitions, and things like organic growth for what we have today, just simply more and more clients using the resources and services that we're providing. So what are some of the challenges that we see specifically in the healthcare industry? Patent cliff. Again, you hear things like a blockbuster drug. We were able for many years to rely on the success of things like Plavix and Ambien to help pay the bills. Eventually, patents run out and generic brands become made available. Those are the kind of things that we struggle with on a day-to-day basis. Also, there's rising bars and regulations. Trying to get something through to the FDA is an extremely difficult process compared to how things used to be in the past. And of course, worldwide regulations. So within the US, we have things like the healthcare reform, and within the EU, there's significant price cuts that we have to deal with. But what does this allow? This gives us opportunity. Opportunities such as meeting unmet medical needs that exist today, the aging of the population. People are simply getting older. This means we need to be able to provide those medicines to those folks for as long as they're around to be able to continue to, enjoy life. And the developing of a global reach. So we talked about emerging markets. There's plenty of areas out there which still have unmet medical needs, and we need to be able to provide them. And then, of course, we need to transform our products. So I mentioned Genzyme, a biotech company. We may not have another blockbuster drug for many years. So we need to look at innovative ways that we can realign our R&D processes. And then within providing healthcare solutions, so not just medicines, there's plenty of solutions and ways that we can help improve the lives of our patients. So we've decided to start developing in those specific areas and giving access to information about medicine if you don't simply have the way to capture that medicine yourself. So what's our goal as IT? We need to become a strategic business partner. So here's a quick layout of what our business organization looks like within Sanofi. We have our R&D, we have our IA, we have the global ops teams, and then we also focus on vaccines. Of course, to align these different business units and to align with any other mergers or acquisitions that we might have, we decided to come up with 3 major programs. First of which was process harmonization. And that's a key player for BMC with us. Without process, there's no way to define things globally, and there's no way to put together a strategy. While working with the BMC toolset and deciding who the solution owners and service owners were within Sanofi, we were able to define those global processes. Now we need a way to implement them. Within Sanofi, we created an organization called GIS, which is a Global Infrastructure Service Department. Within that department, we have people responsible for each one of these processes. We have teams responsible for implementing these. How did this help us? By defining the processes and putting together a new organization, we were able to set up what we call NGDCs, which are a next generation data center. So whether you're in Asia Pac, EMEA, or in the US, and you walk into our data center, you'll see all the rows and racks are identical. We have our heat racks, we have our cooling racks, or heating zones and cooling zones. We have similar technologies regardless of where you are. And why is that important? Because of our sourcing strategy. So for many of our L1 and L2 activities, we reach out to Accenture for support today for our data centers. And without a consistent process, a consistent tool set that BMC provides, it'd be simply impossible to try and manage such a large level of applications that come into our enterprise on a day-to-day basis. So that's where we see the continuous alignment. And again, on the bottom, process standardization, tool standardization through our technical standards. We decided that within Sanofi, we're not going to call them service owners. We're going to actually call the technical teams technical solution owners. So they're really the ones architecting the solution, providing it to our regional teams, and the regional teams are going to implement those solutions and support the NGDCs in the same consistent manner.
As an holistic enterprise-wide capacity management approach, that basically means that you cannot meet this type of goals if you consider each technology as a silo. You need to understand how they orchestrate together. Provides you with the business-aware capacity planning. So we will automate the capacity management. So smart guys just like Chris did not have to care about producing that report, mine the data from whatever data source. The easy job is automated, and Chris can just work with his team in taking informed decision and take the decision that really matter. Hybrid data center consolidation optimization. As Chris said, one of the challenges were, let's put in place 3 data centers that can cover around the sun Sanofi's customer base. The tool has the skills and the features and capabilities to achieve and to provide analysis to take informed decision. And last but not least, unified BSM architecture. We mentioned earlier, people, processes, tools. Being unified helps you aligning all your processes or your people to best practices. So this is why capacity optimization, why Moviri? First of all, we are a software solutions and technology alliance premier partner. We have 10 years of experience in capacity management, and we have 200 enterprise customers worldwide. So we can sit down on a table and provide our experience and avoid common approach errors, avoid common mistakes, and so on. And then we provide some solutions which are available on the market zone.
So let's discuss reloading capacity management. What does this mean, reloading? So obviously, if you look at a capacity management solution, you need to have the right people, you need to have the right processes, and you need to have the right tools. The one key thing that I focused on when I started this new role was the service management aspects of things. Each technology you can consider a service. Each application you can consider a service. Whatever it is that somebody relies on truly represents a service to me. And the key capabilities for a service are availability, is it up or down? Performance, is it working the way that I expect it to work? And do I have the capacity to grow? Yes, it's great that we have a VMAX that can support terabytes and terabytes of data, but what happens when we have another merger and acquisition, plug in another ESX cluster, no more capacity. Not really that helpful. Next is the challenge. So how do we support transformation? Obviously, many of us are dealing today with limited resources across the boat, whether it's people, whether it's budget, whether it's actual systems within the NGDC to support these kind of capabilities. And we have a global visibility. So today we might have 75% of our business within our NGDCs. We don't know what's going to happen when we go to the next data center and try and figure out what solutions they're using. Are they able to easily incorporate or get integrated with our global processes? Are we now going to have to bring over another solution, like an Isolon on the storage side, a legacy product? And then business growth. So I mentioned we have organic growth, which is just your steady state business, bringing on more and more clients. And then we have the inorganic growth, which are the mergers and acquisitions that can change drastically, like a Genzyme integration. Next thing you know, you're revamping how you do all of your processes that you thought worked perfectly fine with the legacy strategy. So the solution, again, as you define this global strategy, is understanding the proactive analytics. So ensuring that you know when you migrate these new servers, these new applications into your data center or into your business, you understand the impact that's going to happen. You also want to have automated reporting. Obviously, no one enjoys putting spreadsheets together on a day-to-day basis. As a capacity manager, when I first entered the role, I simply asked all the technology teams, let me know where you're at from a capacity standpoint. They either looked at you cross-eyed or confused or pretended that they were engaged for about 10 minutes and then got up and left the room and you never heard from them again. Automated reporting is key. You want to sit these folks down, you want to understand what they truly have for thresholds, what it is that they measure from a capacity standpoint, and ensure that you have that information in BCO and ensure that your reports accurately reflect that. Because the biggest challenge that I had was people actually relying on BCO as a data source and not going back to their legacy tools that they may have within their specific domain, whether it's server, storage, networking, et cetera. And then, of course, we want to align to the business. So you saw some of the new features of version 10 that are coming out, being able to do some resource planning and capacity planning. This is extremely important because you don't want to get one of those last-minute curveballs where we asked for X, Y, and Z, you go to implement, and next thing you know, you ran out of a bunch of IP addresses in your front-end zone, and the project comes to a screeching halt on a weekend. And then what are the results? So as we mentioned, within Sanofi, we needed a global process that was consistent regardless of your data center. You need to have visibility. So people need to understand what is it, the service that you're supporting, and how is it being measured? And is it being measured effectively? One of the more important things. And again, the automated reporting that can easily be emailed out to these folks if you don't want them to have to log into a console, or you can actually input this into some sort of global dashboards, which is another item that I've been tasked on recently that we'll hopefully throw together by the end of December. And then business-aware capacity.
So let's spend a few words about our approach for the implementation. Here we're trying to sum it up in different slides. First point first, assess and prepare. That is all about understanding where we are and where we're going to go. That means going for process definition. So who takes decision on what and how communicates that. Defining the KPIs for two main areas. How we can measure how effective we are over the process. So what is the benefit that we're giving to the company, but also what are the KPIs that are core and key in order to make sure the capacity is there. And model the technologies over that KPI. So how we can identify whether or not a storage box is under sufferance or my VMware farm is performing as I would like to. This is key, especially the part of definition of the KPIs. Most of the time, people just come and ask, I want the whole data. What for? That's the standard answer. What is the value of integrating that KPI? What is the likelihood that you're going to use that? So let's focus on the KPIs that are really critical and go for it. As we know where we want to go and how we're going to measure both the capacity and how successful we are, we go for analyze and design. Here we are all about data. And it all comes down to standardize the data sources. So make an exercise, not just for integration's sake to prove how flexible is the solution, but make sure that the process of automating the pooling of the data, it's robust, it's standardized, it's measurable, is always improvable and controllable. And define the data integration approach. The tool itself is kind of flexible in scheduling the extraction and be as much as possible transparent to the production environment. We may not want to have production environment have the need to run our extraction jobs other than serving customers, of course. So it's really important that we define when we can pull the data and what is the most effective and transparent way. So as we know where we want to go and how we're going to do that, as we know where is the data that we are interested in, there is the easy part, the build and deploy. So we set up the integrations, and so the tool gets populated with the information. We prepare analysis, models, and reports. The analysis, and model, and report that in assess and prepare, we thought might come out with the value to the whole company, and we create dashboards. Dashboards are, I hope you're enjoying them, but are a powerful mean to analyze data, have a top-down approach, have a visual understanding of what's going on, where you need to have a drill down. And right after that, there is the rollout. So we implemented what we thought might be the best chance. We have the tools to implement the process, to provide value, to measure how effective is what we thought might be the best option. And we can, of course, as ITIL says, other best practice says, go for a continual improvement of what we're doing on a day-by-day basis. And of course, the rollout comes out also, as Chris mentioned, as a result, as a service improvement. So our services, the services managed, are running better.
vCenter, obviously very important for your ESX environment. BPA gives you visibility into your HP virtualization. Within Sanofi, we're very heavy on virtualization, so I'd say the top connector is probably my most important day-to-day. And then you see connections that we can have for things like grid control on the Oracle side, internal database that we have for SQL information. On the storage side, give a nice plug to our Sentry connectors. You can simply plug and play those. They'll talk to your SMIS agents and give you information over the VMAX, VNX. You can set up some IP data to gather NetApp information and your legacy Clarion data. Out-of-the-box dashboards, if you want a quick win, I would definitely look into something like a Sentry connector. On the network side, we have Intuity connectors from our pals at Moviri. This will give you visibility into Intuity, eye of the storm as you might know it. If you want to look at routers and switches and see different port configurations and availability, as well as some bandwidth utilization, which is extremely important when you get into some of your choke areas within the NGDC. From a facility standpoint, we're not leveraging as much as we could, but there's tools like HP SIM that you can pull in data from for your row and rack definitions. And then CMDB. So assuming your CMDB is up to date and you have alignment between your application CIs and your server CIs, you can pull out information into BCO, and as you're creating dashboards or creating reports for specific application teams, they'll see all their servers listed in one nice view. If you can set it up and get it working, it's been a very good win for some of the organization folks so far. So capacity management deliverables, it's pretty simple. Once you install the tool, you can do things like forecasting models and do correlation models. So trend analysis is really key. Within Sanofi, BCO or True Site Capacity Optimization is not utilized for immediate troubleshooting, although we have a lot of information that could be used by our L1 and L2 support teams to help facilitate their incident management process. It's more for forecasting and correlating and models. You want to see what is my solution going to look like 3 months down the road or 6 months down the road. You can't simply order a VMAX overnight and have it show up in your data center. You know, these are the kind of things that take a significant amount of budget, a significant amount of planning to pull off. And then the built-in dashboards. So as Andrea mentioned, many of the out-of-the-box dashboards can fill most of the needs for folks, and they're easily configurable on the back end. Or you can bring partners in like BMC and Iberia to help you develop some of those dashboards if you have customer-specific requirements within your company. And then why do we do this? Obviously, we want to reduce costs. Through automated reports, through these dashboards, through an understanding of what capacity management is, how it can be utilized within a company, you're able to reduce your total cost for specifically us for our data center environment. But hopefully, as we move forward into 2015, reduce costs within the application side as well.
So, what is the value in correlating IT metrics with business KPIs? What you have here is basically a scatter plot. On the x-axis, we have a measure of business volume. Let's say users that are insisting over, you name it, load balancer, web server, whatever it is. So users is on the X. On the Y, you have the response in terms of IT consumption. In this case, it's CPU utilization of a server. So as user increase, and this is actual data, the CPU utilization grows. And that data point, standing on the cloud, indicate us that there might be a good correlation between the two. So what if we basically draw a linear regression line, and we just drove it up to when we breach the thresholds, in this case 50%, right? And this is basically when the chart becomes red. What this chart is giving to us, it's giving to us a measure in terms of business of the current utilization. This can be a layer, but can be the whole service, right? So you can come back to the C levels and not saying we're running at 50% of CPU. The answer that you might have is, so what? Now you can come back saying, you know what, now we are able to manage up to 1,000 users per hour. That's our current utilization. You can estimate the difference between the maximum capacity and the current usage, the residual capacity, in terms of how many users how many business units I can sustain over my service before breaching a threshold. This is a very important measure. Why? Because it helps you not only planning, but optimizing, right? You can understand, okay, in this case, we have, let's assume, 10,000 users, right? 10,000 users this application can manage. Are we ever going to manage 10,000 users? Then you can exchange this information with marketing. You can exchange that information with demand. You can exchange the information within the company, talking a common language, which is money in the very end. And you can either decide, I want to allocate more capacity in order to make sure that I can sustain this number of users, because I'm going to have a marketing campaign and we are going to hit 20,000 users per hour, or you can decide to reclaim capacity. Just saying we're never going over 5,000 users per hour. So you can release some of the capacity, optimize that, and size the capacity of your service. So here we are really talking about service. Size the capacity over the business volumes. Besides the theory, how we made it happen. So we took advantage of Splunk as a data aggregation, a log collector. Most of the time you try to start making this exercise, of course you need to talk with service owners, application managers. The usual response that you're going to have is, I don't have time to provide you the data, I don't have time and I don't want to let you have access to my system. Who is asking that? So in that way, you can just have them take advantage of Splunk, or in the future ITDA, and use them as log concentrator. They just need to pull the logs over there. And then we have a single point of integration. That basically means we set up the integration once, we just go for the opening ones, and then it's just a matter of tuning that one case by case, and it's a repeatable process. So you can go throughout the company, you can turn it on faster, you have repeatable, measurable, tunable process to taking place. And this is a huge advantage. As we said, you can unleash the business-aware capacity reporting. Again, you can come out with correlation between IT and business KPIs and understand services as a whole. In this example, we have correlation. Some other examples, you might not have correlation. And in the very end, you learn something about your system that you didn't know. And you can create business-aware capacity models, which is, of course, an added value. All right, so let's wrap it up with lessons learned and best practices for the initiative that we had together with Sanofi. So first thing first, we've talked about people, the importance of people. So partnership between capacity management team and technical owners is, of course, core. So you need to speak the unspeakable, think the unthinkable. Put the majority of the SMEs together, at least in the assessment phase. Listen to the current pains, what you would like to avoid every time. What is that report they need to produce over and over? What kind of visibility would like to have over their infrastructure? And leverage their skills and expertise. So there is no correct way always to look at the data. Sometimes, and it's way more effective to listen to each other and come out with an agreed result. And that comes out also with the efficient design and implementation of through-site capacity optimization. As we said, it's all about, for instance, defining what are data sources. what is a repeatable data source, what is a robust data source, what is the best approach, what is the value that we have in putting effort in order to connect to a data source. Second point, data quality. So check the data quality. We rely on existing, as Chris showed to you, we rely on existing performance monitoring tools or basically data repositories. So we need to assess those data sources, make sure that the information which is stored there, it's fit for the job. If our data has quality, we are trustworthy within the company, right? So we can slice the information on a whole new perspective. And also understand integration points. So understand what is the best way that we can approach, let me name it one, Unisphere. If in the future we need to go to Unisphere, what is the best way to approach? We might have different options. We can either go from the database or the REST APIs. What is the most sustainable approach? This is, of course, key. Last thing, but maybe the most important from a business perspective, understand the business value, right, on what you are monitoring. So most of the time you kickstart a project and say, OK, what is the first thing? And the usual answer is, OK, who is costing you the most? And it's most critical for your business, right? You can imagine that if the, I don't know, the payroll system goes down, that might be a problem if you need to, right, go out with the salaries. If the VDI system goes down, that might be a real problem, right? So you need to standardize them and say, OK, let's cover first what is really core for my business. Let's cover first even for business-aware models, what is really critical. And where we can really think we can prove the value of IT and the discipline of capacity management to the rest of the company, and then focus on the other silos and towers.
So what's down the road for Sanofi? Obviously, we want to grow. And by grow, that means more and more applications coming into the environment. So unless we have the right process put in place, we're going to bite ourselves in the butt with this. We need to have the right capacity throughout all the technologies. We need to have the right visibility within the company. We need to have the right team put together. So I'm a global capacity manager. I have a regional capacity manager within each of the regions. We have a monthly capacity management call where we go technology by technology. It lasts about an hour. People speak up if they have any concerns, if they know of any large projects that are coming down the road, if they know of any new applications that are going to be coming in that are high priority or high visibility. You need to have those open lines of communication. That also gives us a tie back into the regional teams that are implementing each one of our solutions. Without someone coordinating this all, we're going to be right back to where we were a few years ago, where the storage guys weren't talking to the server guys, the business teams weren't talking to anybody, and it was just a disaster at certain times, and it would just be a SWAT team each and every time to try and get something implemented. So if you have the right processes put in place, you have the right contacts, and people just know who to go to get a straight answer, that's going to be your most successful starting point, from my opinion. And then how do we enhance? So we talked about correlation models. We talked about getting the data into BCO. Once you have the information, you can develop dashboards, you can develop reports as detailed as the business needs. And then refine. Of course, we have the ability to look at cost modeling. Today, it's a very high bar for me if I can somehow achieve some cost savings within the next year or so. But what I hope to achieve by 2016 is to have each service defined that we have within capacity optimization, be able to put a true dollar value to it, and you'll know exactly what it costs to have a gigabyte if you're in EMEA, or what it costs to have high availability for network redundancy if you're sitting down in another data center. And then, of course, the last slide, which Giuseppe will be very proud for, is upgrading the TrueSite Capacity Optimization version 10. We were part of the beta program. I took a look at a few of the capabilities. I love the demand management stuff. I'm really happy about the new views that they put out. So if you get a chance, when that becomes available, download it, stick it in your lab, start playing with it, and when you get the chance, upgrade. And of course, as they mentioned, if you want to leverage the PostgreSQL, because you have some cost concerns and you don't have an Oracle database to throw it up on, you now have that option with version 10.